So organizational responsibilities. Well, somebody has to protect this information. And there's that act of safeguarding it comes in various forms. You could call it due care and due diligence. So due care, the care a reasonable person would exercise under given circumstances. If I don't do due care, that's negligence on my part. Then there's also this notion of due diligence. So due diligence is a precursor to due care, and it's the things I do now to make sure that if something does happen, I'm avoiding harm to a person or an organization. Due diligence might be things like background checks, credit checks, or security assessments. A way to kind of differentiate between this, due care, let's consider you have a laptop and it has personal identifiable information in it. Names, email addresses, phone numbers, socials, and address. So it's got the big 5 on there. Due care might be, well, I've got this laptop and I left it in my car unattended, and I put a sign on it that said, this is a laptop with PII. I have not exercised due care. Due diligence, on the other hand, would be, well, I'm the CIO of a company, and I have users who I know leave laptops lying around in their cars. I'm going to put full disk encryption on that system so that when they do leave it lying around and it gets stolen, you can't recover the data from it. So I've done my due diligence as a CISO by putting the full disk encryption on that particular system. Liability. So companies can be held liable for data breaches and compromises of personal information. Most of the financial impact from data breaches and most of the liability from it is financial, and it comes from fines. Because you were subject to this type of regulation, you didn't follow the regulation, and therefore the U.S. federal court will fine you X number of dollars. And it could be, dollars per record compromised. It could be, you might get a package deal and a discount, if you will, based on, how many records. It might be, well, we'll lump it all together and just fine you $10 million. Okay, well, so most companies are very sensitive to this. And so they look at, well, how do I limit my liability from this? On the previous slide, we talked about due care and due diligence, and this is how you actually make sure that you don't run afoul of the privacy regulations. Do your due care, do your due diligence on your systems and on your information. Then look at things like end-user agreements, licenses, and even disclaimer statements to a certain degree. These won't protect you completely, but this is why you now see, every time you install a piece of software, anytime you enter a vendor relationship, there's usually some type of, disclaimer statement about limited liability, and this is why. Employee monitoring. So an aspect of privacy is I've got employees on my network, and as the Chief Information Security Officer, I'm responsible for the security of this network. How do I make sure that I keep my network secure when I've got all these employees out there going, visiting various sites, doing things on the network they shouldn't do? Well, employee monitoring says I have the right to look at what my employees are doing on the network in the workplace. There should be no notion of privacy or right to privacy on an employer network. And so as an employer, I want to look at my employees, and I'm going to look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, and making sure that they're not a security violation or causing security violations. You can see the 7 principles with legality and justifying employee monitoring here with necessity, transparency, security, proportionality. What this boils down to is you, as an employer, you do have the right to monitor your employees on the network, but be cool about it, right? Tell them that you're doing it. Only look at the data that you need for security monitoring. And don't abuse the fact that you're collecting this type of information. So for a small company, let's say, your employee monitoring might consist of, I have a monitoring policy, so I've told everybody that I am going to monitor their actions on the network. That policy stipulates that I'm only going to collect data that I need to from a security standpoint to make sure that we're not being hacked into. So I might monitor the websites that you go to, the communications that you make. I might monitor the email attachments coming and going from your email account. And there's no right of privacy there because I've told you ahead of time that I'm going to do that. But what do I do with that information? The key is I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to abuse it. I'm going to take that information, monitor for security incidents, and then dump it. I'm not going to take your website browsing history and fire you because you were visiting certain sites unless those sites are a violation of policy. Then I have the ability to do that. But that's a whole other policy that dictates that. So, again, employee privacy. If you are monitoring email, network usage, and that sort of thing, tell them about it. Be transparent about what you're monitoring, how you're doing it, and what you're going to do with it. Explain that through a policy. Probably a pretty good idea is to explain that during your quarterly, monthly, annually, whatever it might be, security awareness training. And you can do that through your security policies, describing what that monitoring might be, making sure you tell them they have no reasonable expectation of privacy, and then recurring, remind them. Again, attention deficit being what it is, I'm only going to remember for 3 months, so maybe I need a quarterly refresher on the fact that you're monitoring me and you're going to use this information.